Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer, and I wanted to discuss. I think I've done a video on this before, kind of, but about the advice that is given online about narcissistic abuse and about how you're supposed to deal with it, cope with it, the steps you need to take. And now, don't get me wrong, this advice is necessary. I know I needed to hear this, or I would have never known what was going on in my life. But at the same time, I was so desperate to find out and grateful to know what was going on that I kind of just held on to everything that I heard, and I accepted that as truth. So I tried to follow it to the T, and the steps and all of that, it seems universal with like every coach out there, spiritual, whatever. And these are all good things, I think, but a lot of it is just generic information. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. I'm saying it's universal, and it's kind of the basis for healing, for improvement, but it doesn't apply to everybody. Definitely not every step. Like, for example, I'm going to play the devil's advocate, and I'm open to disagreement, and that's fine. I just want to offer a different opinion or a different view about things. So, like forgiveness. Now, this is portrayed as a necessity. Like, in order to move forward, you must, forgive your abuser. Now, see, I think if I say don't forgive your abuser, then that seems like it's a negative thing. But for example, do I forgive my ex-abuser? Not necessarily. I mean, more than anything, I'm neutral. I just don't care. Like, I don't feel the need to forgive. I think the bottom line and the most important thing is that I forgive myself for any errors that I feel that I've made, or for, all the things that I thought about in the beginning. Like, how could I allow this? Like, oh my God, how could I waste so much time? That, I've forgiven myself for all of that. And that wasn't even something that is necessarily something that was an error, but because out of trust and love. But that's what the vital thing is, to forgive yourself. And if you feel as an individual that you can move forward and heal better if you forgive your offender, then that's great. And you should do it. But maybe it's not for everybody. And maybe it's not a necessity in order to, pass that. Or maybe you don't need to. People are different. So another one is taking responsibility for your actions. Now, this is true, but I've seen an overwhelming focus on the abusers or the victim's actions. And I think that needs to be a little more balanced. I'm not saying talk a bunch of shit about whoever offended you or whoever hurt you, but, acknowledge your part in it and then move forward. And it seems like we just kind of, in everything that I've researched, everybody focuses on that a little too much. It kind of borders like to blame. And I'm not saying that it is, but people that are coming out of the fog, like, definitely, that is something that you cannot deal with at that time, about this self. Like, you take responsibility. That's not appropriate. There's a time and place to deal with that and to cope with that and acknowledge it, not in the beginning, especially. So, take responsibility for your actions only, and then move on. And we don't need to, like, overly focus on that aspect of the abuse. So, let's see. I have to say this. I've heard this in almost every video that I've ever watched, which is a lot of the abuse happens because of lack of self-love or self-hatred. And this I also have a problem with, because that's not necessarily true. It's entirely possible that you do feel self-love, and you had prior to this relationship. It's entirely possible that you were a totally different person. You had self-love, self-respect, worth. And then after this relationship, you're a mess and you don't know who you are. Maybe you lost that because of the relationship and what was done to you. But to say that it's because you did not love yourself, I can't say that that's true for everybody. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because it's kind of saying that everybody who experiences this or has this is because they had some self issues, and that's not necessarily true. Like, for instance, I was happy prior to, I felt whole, I was confident, and I think a lot of victims of narcissistic abuse are prior to the relationship. And the reason why that changes is because of manipulation, and it's a long-term brainwashing thing. And it works because victims are often empathetic people who genuinely love, and we just don't consider that as an option. Like the gaslighting, flying monkeys, we probably just didn't even consider it and know that it was going to happen. If anything, it's because we were naive and hopeful of this situation, of the great love of our lives or whatever. And, that might be seen as a flaw, but it's totally different from saying it's because I didn't love myself, because these things can be learned. You can be conditioned to and acceptable to abuse. Okay, and we all know this. That's most of us have been in these things for years. So definitely we know that the way we think, the way we change, these are all things that can be learned, and love can be learned, and also, losing self-love or self-respect, that can also be learned. There's this book called Escape from Camp 47, I think, and it's the story of this North Korean man who escapes this kind of a concentration camp in North Korea, and I think he's the first documented person to escape, and he talks about his life, and it's very moving, because he lives in this camp he's born there, because he's pretty much in prison because of his great-grandfather committed a thought crime. So in North Korea, 3 generations have to pay for the sins of an individual. So he was the last in line, so that's all he knew. And he was beaten all the time. He just worked like a mule. He was always hungry and malnourished, diseased, but that's all he knew. He didn't feel anything else. This was his way of life. He didn't know to complain or feel sad. Like, he was just living, and that's all he knew. But things started to change when somebody got arrested, and he was from the West, and he got, I guess, roomed with him in a jail cell, and this Westerner started telling him about, about America and what was going on, and movies and food and families and love, and he was so profoundly interested in all these things that he never knew about. And then the Western man left. He got released or something, but in his book, this man says that this is the first time he felt hope, that he wanted to leave North Korea. He wanted to leave the camp. He wanted to have a better life. And he was 27, I think. So for 27 years, he didn't know about these feelings. He said he did not know what love was until recently. He had to leave North Korea because he got rescued, and he's living in South Korea now. But it took him a long time even afterwards to know that love existed. So I think that's a sad thing, but I think it goes to show you that everything can be learned, and you can be brainwashed into believing things or trained, and sadly, this happens to a lot of people. And I don't know why I went on that, right, but I just wanted to give an example of what it's like. So yeah, I guess that's all I'll say for now, but these are just some examples. You don't have to listen to everything. Not everything you hear is true necessarily. A lot of this advice I see is you must do these, or you have to do this. And I remember when I was reading, I'm like, oh my God, I can't do that. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? I can't do it. Especially the part about get over the revenge, stop wanting to have revenge. And I thought, and every video was you got to stop doing it. And I couldn't. I was like, my God, what's wrong with me? I can't get over it. I hate him so much. And so it really bothered me at that time, and it worried me even more than I should have. And sometimes these phases take longer, and sometimes you don't need every step. You don't need to first cope with this and do that, and then you don't need all that. Just follow what you know you need. And I think if you panic about anything that you're not accomplishing or doing, then that's a sign that maybe that part you can wait, or you don't need to do it. And I'm not trying to talk smack about the community, because I love this community. It's where I learned a lot of information, but I've been noticing and seeing that a lot of, I guess, advisors and such, it's become more of a business than actually, helping people. And I know the intentions maybe started off good, but now if I read through comments, I rarely see a response at all. Like, and these are professionals, and I'll see like people desperate, like pages, like, what do I do? And like, no, there's no feedback and no acknowledgement. And then but you can order like a worksheet for $95, and that'll help you. And it kind of bothers me, this impersonal way of helping others. And I know that I'm not knocking people who like get, want to make a business if they want to help people, and that's great, but there's a reasonable amount, I think you should be able to charge. And I don't know, I'm just saying, as a person, and especially someone who's experienced this type of abuse, to not even respond, and to charge so much for services, especially when you know that victims usually do not have the resources to pay for it. And I think that's a sad thing. And so I think that if you guys are seeking like real information, then seek what's right for you. Don't like cut yourself short to try to afford help, or like get emergency text messaging for only $50. It's because I see a lot of this stuff. And I just want you guys to know that there's a lot of information out there. Just see what's right with you. I know I've said that before, but don't get sucked into believing all the things that you hear, cheesy as it is. Follow your heart, and don't get suckered into doing or paying for services that you don't need. And I know that sometimes in these situations you're so lonely and you just need to talk, and and you're like, you wish you could like get these services, maybe a webinar or something, but you just don't have the resources. And I feel for you. And if anybody wants to ever email me, I'm always here. My email address is jgreen661@yahoo.com. I will always respond, and I'm not here to try to be a teacher or educate you. I'm trying to share my experience in an effort so you can relate and understand it, because I think we have enough people out there that are the gurus and the spiritual advisors, and they're effective, and I agree with that. But I wanted to approach this in a different way, and I think it, I hope it helps in some way. But sorry for the rant. I hope you guys are doing well again, and I'll talk to you later.